Hello, welcome back to the Villa View. It's time for a post-match pint in association with Purity Ale. If you want to get 10% off everything that Purity have to offer, then use the code #VillaView and you'll get 10% off when you come to pay for your goods. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by Villa on tour, aka Max Stokes, who was at Old Trafford yesterday as Villa fell for their first defeat in absolutely ages. Just said to you, Max, before we came on, I'd actually forgotten what it felt like to lose. And although, to be honest, I wasn't too downbeat about it. It was a bizarre feeling because it has been a couple of months without a defeat.
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird, but I said to you before, it kind of felt like there was appreciation in the away end after the game yesterday. There was good chance of Villa till I die and Unai Emery's Claret and Blue Army going on for a long time after the final whistle. So it's injured disappointment. Of course, there is. Like you said, it does feel a little bit odd, but I think with the run we've been on, it was just pure appreciation yesterday. And it was going to come at some point. Man United hadn't lost at home since the opening game of the season, so it was going to be super hard. But I thought we gave it a good go. Could have potentially got a point at least out of the game, but it was always going to happen at some point, unfortunately.
Yeah, I didn't realise until today that Manchester United do actually have the best home defensive record as well. They've only conceded 8 goals at home in the entirety of the season, which is a staggering record and a massive turnaround from what they were doing last season. I like what you've said, that the fans were encouraging still at the end, staying with the team. I really, really like that. And, they'll be there in full force again against Wolves next week, which is now a real huge game. Always a big game anyway, but now we've lost a game. It takes on that extra sort of credibility, and Villa need a win really to stay in the hunt in the European picture. A positive from yesterday, I would say that I didn't think we played that well. Definitely not our best performance over the last few weeks. I did think it was maybe a game too far and we looked a little bit tired. But even after all that, we only lost by 1-0. And even on a bad day, we could have quite easily taken something from the game, I felt.
Yeah, it was a bit of a rubbish goal as well, wasn't it? I'm sure we'll come on to it. I think Emi Martinez was asked after the game what was the point in the defeat, and he said it was down to a deflection, things like that. So I don't think Man United were great either, to be honest. Like, they've got that sort of they can grind out a game, whatever. They've got a lot of attacking talent, to be fair, on the pitch yesterday. Sabitzer, Eriksen, Sancho, Fernandes, Rashford going forward as well. So, they had a lot of talent. I don't think they were great, though. But, yeah, like you said, it kind of felt like it was a little bit too far. I think I was going into the game sort of expecting us to maybe look a tiny bit fresher than Man United, with them, getting battered in Europe, us having a couple of extra days because they played on Thursday. They even threw away a 2-0 lead against Tottenham on Thursday. So, I don't know. It was always going to be hard, of course. They had a great record at Old Trafford, but just couldn't quite get into gear, could we? Which was a little bit disappointing.
I've got to say, I was probably the most confident I've ever been with Villa going to Old Trafford. I just really, really fancied us. I thought that extra 2 days rest and the fact that they'd had that game against Spurs where they threw away the 2-goal lead and we'd not played since Tuesday. I really thought that would make a huge difference, but it didn't really seem to. But when you think about over the last month, it's been that same 11 week in, week out, and they've given absolutely everything for the badge and everything for the shirt every single week. I thought they played in first gear, second gear against Fulham on Tuesday. But naturally now, you look at someone like Ashley Young at my age, 37, playing
Old,
for
very old, Dan.
playing a lot of games on the spin, probably something you never expected to do. Even the fact we've probably only got 4 injuries, really, and maybe not every one of those players starts. It's caught up with us a little bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. And even the players coming off the bench, it's like, what can you really do when you're chasing a game and you're struggling to create chances? Realistically, what can you do going forward? Traore's only the real option. Coutinho has been out for 11 games. People, he hasn't been great this season. Hasn't come up with, I think he scored 1 goal when he has played. Even something like that, something different. Bailey as well. He's got a lot of stick this season, and rightly so. Someone like that, you just miss, don't you? Just that little bit of injection of pace or something. There's only so much you can do coming off the bench. And yeah, it's the same 11. We talk about team news, whatever, going into each game. There's not much you can do. I think we really miss Kamara massively.
Yeah, we did.
I think Dendonker's done an okay job since he's come in. He does the simple stuff. I like it. But Kamara, defensively and attacking, he offers so much. And I worry we're not going to see him again this season. I've just got a feeling. So I don't know. I think we missed him massively yesterday, and we are massively down to the bare bones at this point.
A huge problem I noticed yesterday, I don't know whether it came across as much actually at the ground, just be falling over a lot. Our players seem to just not adapt to the conditions at all. Every time I was watching, there was someone in the background falling over, or we'd put the ball into the box and someone would fall over. It felt like we were slipping over a lot yesterday. Pivotal moments. I don't know whether the weather played a part. I didn't feel like we had that element of control in the game that we've probably had in 85% of the last 10 games. I just didn't feel that control was there yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't notice the slipping over. I actually didn't notice that. I can't remember what game it was this season, but I remember there was another game where people kept falling over. It was really bizarre.
Be interested.
But yeah,
back me up in the live chat if that is the case, or if I'm just imagining it, because I did
yeah,
feel like there was players falling over every couple of minutes.
normally I do notice weird things like that, so I don't know. I'll have to rewatch things, but yeah, people will let us know. But yeah, on the control and keeping the hold possession, I'm a big fan of. Sometimes you just need to put your foot on the ball and just chill out for a couple of minutes and just pass it around the back. Felt like it was hard to do yesterday, especially in the first half. I thought second half we were a bit better, but in the first half it was really, really difficult. Obviously, it was down our end as well from the away end, and we just could not get out. And we went long quite a bit as well, which obviously where the goal comes from, and we just weren't allowed to play the way we liked. I think Ramsey was quiet when Dia struggled to hold on to the ball. We just weren't allowed to play the way we wanted to. And I think Dallo did a good job on Moreno as well. I think we couldn't use the out ball as much as we wanted to and as much as we have done in the last couple of weeks. So that was a major factor as well. But yeah, just couldn't control the play yesterday, especially in that first half.
I'd say they probably created the bulk of the chances, although when we did have chances, I felt they were decent ones. Moreno in the first half, and there was that one bobbling around at the end of the second half as well. We ended the game quite strongly, but I thought if the game had maybe been 5-10 minutes longer, I think we may have nicked a goal and taken something. But what did you make of the high line yesterday? Because I read an article in the Athletic today kind of insinuating that we've been playing that high line for weeks and weeks and weeks, and maybe we have, but it felt extra high yesterday. Or was it just that Manchester United spotted it and they exploited it with Rashford, who's very good at timing his runs and getting in behind, especially in the first half? I felt we were too easy to play through, maybe.
Yeah, that ball over the top was causing us massive problems. And I'm not sure. It's probably something you'd adapt to, isn't it? You see Rashford, who's had a brilliant season. He's got that pace, and it's where the goal comes from. I think Conte is a little bit slow out. And like I said, we're going long from a goal kick, which we haven't really seen recently, have we? I'm not sure.
No,
not really sure where that came from, but we went long. It was a straight header back, and Conte is just that little bit slow getting out. He plays Rashford on side, and he goes through, and Bruno scores. But yeah, that over the top ball was causing us problems all game, and I'm not sure what that comes down to be honest, because I think it's easy to identify, isn't it, with Rashford's pace and things like that. A lot of attacking talent, which we've already talked about. So yeah, that was where it came down to yesterday, especially with the goal. Major moments again.
Slightly frustrating because Rashford's probably played most of the season on the left hand side, but he plays through the middle against us yesterday and does it well and exploits that high line. Yeah, Weghorst had been playing up front. You kind of feel we'd have had the measure of him. We'd have been able to deal with him up front, but it was Rashford that played there, and he was dangerous. And we had a couple of warning signs before that with the high line. Another time when someone fell over, there was that weird one when someone crossed the ball in, and Martinez slipped and it nearly ended up going in the back of the net on the.
I remember a slip actually. What was Watkins wasn't there when Moreno had that chance in the first half?
Dark Mason, the chat said he agrees with what I'm saying about the slipping. So it definitely was a factor, and I got to say I didn't notice it happening to the Manchester United players, but maybe that's because I'm purely watching from a Villa perspective. What do you think of the goal? It's a tad unfortunate. It's weird that we went long. They talked about it a little bit on Monday Night Football before the Leicester and Everton game. I don't know whether you saw it, where Mings has said something to Martinez just before the goal kick, and they all push up, and he plays that straight ball. It's kind of FIFA goal, isn't it? Kind of goal I always concede in FIFA, where you feel like you person you're playing against headers always go straight to their players. He's headed it back straight and they end up through. Rashford's took the shot. There's not much power in it. I think Emmy's a little bit unfortunate because he does get it away and he does get it wide. It's ended up being that deflection that's taken it in, and of course it had to be Bruno Fernandes, who always scores against Villa. A few people said to me they thought Martinez could have done a little bit more with it, done a little bit better. But I do just think it's one of those unfortunate goals, and it is the deflection that's taking it in, because I think if it doesn't take the deflection, he doesn't score from that angle.
Was it going in? Was Rashford's shot going in? Because at the time I thought I didn't think it was, but I haven't seen it back.
Quite wide. I haven't seen an angle that tells me whether it was going in or whether it wasn't or not. I think Fernandez's shot would have hit the target But I don't think he would have scored had it not taken that deflection, because I think Moreno he hits Moreno, doesn't he? I think it's Mings and
Mings is
Martinez.
sliding in on the line.
He takes it over Martinez.
Yeah, I think Martinez, if that's Olsen, everyone's moaning. Like, I think it's because of Martinez's high standards. You probably expect him to do a little bit better there. If he does get his hands to it, it's a dangerous area to put it into. But it's that deflection, isn't it? That deflection's the crucial moment. You've got Martinez and Mings on the line, so it takes it over both of them. And at the time, I thought it was a good finish. But looking back, it's that deflection, isn't it? And of course, it's that guy, Fernandez, runs to the away end and kind of just glares at us. It was horrible. He's insufferable, isn't he, that bloke? I really don't dislike him. And he knows it as well. His interviews after the game where he was sort of saying, Villa fans need to focus on their own players. It's like, is he serious? He's a massive wind-up merchant, isn't he? And he doesn't need to be, because he's a really good player. He's a really, really good player. So he doesn't need to be the way he is. He really doesn't. But that's what he is. And again, he has another goal involvement against the Villa. We're used to it at this point, aren't we?
I mean, I was watching it with one of my friends, and I said to him, they can't, always with the type of player like Fernandez, the kind of player you don't like, but if he's playing for your team, you do like him. But I think even if he was playing for my team, he'd annoy me.
Well, yeah, I was literally about to say that.
I still wouldn't like him.
He crosses the line.
Player, but I find it's too much all game. He's in the referee's face, complains about everything, spends half the game on the floor. Like I say, he's an unbelievable footballer. He's a really, really good player, but I do think insufferable is a good choice of word from you. I think
it's non-stop. It's absolutely non-stop.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure you've seen it, but Sancho, the camera's got it. They zoomed in on Sancho, and he was like, "Stop moaning" to Fernandez, and it's like even his own players are saying that. And you're right though. If you played for Villa, like he crosses the line, doesn't he? It's like, just take a breather, because he doesn't need to do it, because he's an exceptional footballer. So what's the point?
Yeah, Paul Burling says we didn't have any control as United stopped our double pivot out of possession. They man-marked Luiz and Dendoncker. There were signs of that in the Forest game. That was probably 3-4 weeks ago now, where they sat their two number 10s on Luiz, and I think it was McGinn who played centrally in that game. And in that first half, we did find it difficult, and it did stop us progressing. And that happened again yesterday. It's hard to find a way around that, because Luiz in particular is such a big part of how we build up play.
Yeah, me and Simon were saying that I think at half-time we probably would have thought about dropping McGinn back into that midfield, because he wasn't having too much joy, was he? Malacia was having an okay game. He wasn't having too much joy out wide. So he probably wanted to drop in a little bit, add a little bit of bite to that midfield. I like Dendoncker. He's probably played more games than we ideally would have liked, but again, like we said earlier, we don't really have a choice with the injuries and stuff. So I don't know, I would have liked a little bit more bite in that midfield, a little bit more grit with McGinn, just even ball retention, just holding on to the ball for that little bit longer than Dendoncker would, because I don't think he was great yesterday. And yeah, midfield was where we got overrun yesterday, and that was the difference in the game, especially in that first half.
Yeah, I was the same. I think McGinn's been brilliant for months, but I think out on the right yesterday, we were lacking him, a player of his ilk in the middle. I like it when he comes into the middle, because I think Luiz, it sounds out of order, and I don't mean like this. I think there's more of a trust there, which is obvious because they've played together more. So Luiz will tend to find himself in the penalty area a little bit more when McGinn's central. Obviously, he scored against Brentford the other week when McGinn had moved central, because then Dendoncker had come off by then, and Luiz found himself in the box. I think there's just that little bit more of a relationship between those two. And I think with McGinn, he frees Luiz up a little bit to go a little bit further forward, because he knows that he's got a bit more of an engine and gets about the pitch better than Dendoncker does. And Luiz was popping up. There was a similar moment, wasn't there, where Luiz has a shot and it's cleared off the line at the end of the game. I think maybe we would have made that change just slightly earlier. I felt when we did that, we got a bit more of a foothold in the game. I've no complaints with losing the game, really. I think Manchester United were the better team. I think they deserve to win. I think their home form has been really, really good. But he's just that weird one that he's probably the most confident I've ever been going to Manchester United.
Yeah, I was the same going into it. I think both myself and Simon predicted 1-0 wins for Villa, sort of that classic Unai Emery away 1-0 performance. And it's the first game we haven't scored in under Unai Emery, which isn't bad for 6 months, is it? Not bad at all, that. And we never really looked like scoring as well. I think we were just that little bit leggy. I think the only chances we created was that Moreno one in the first half, and that Luiz one where the first shot is terrible. In the end, the second one is a good clearance off the line from Lindelof. So annoying. It's one of them. You lose the game again at Old Trafford from a slightly dodgy goal, but they probably just about edged it in the game. So no complaints as long as you bounce back next week.
Let's talk about a couple of the players. Let's start with Watkins. 3 games without a goal now. Absolute disgrace. Rip up that new contract that's on the way.
Get rid.
Absolutely outrageous. Who does he think it is? He is. But it is 3 games without a goal for him now. And across those 3 games, I don't feel like he's had much of the ball. I don't feel like there's been many chances. Like it's not like he's particularly missed any chances in those 3 games. He had a header against Brentford late on that he took away from Buendia, but other than that, it's not like he's been going clean through and missing chances. What have you made of that over the last 3 games? Do you think teams have sussed him a little bit? Which, he's always going to happen. If someone's scoring a lot of goals, teams are going to identify ways to stop him, and maybe that's just what's happened over the last 3 weeks.
It's the new baby curse, isn't it? The new baby curse. I think it happened
don't.
last time with his firstborn, wasn't it? He had a bit of a stinker, and then when his missus was pregnant with this one, he was absolutely flying. So yeah, new baby curse. He's not getting the sleep he deserves. But yeah, look, players are gonna. It's obvious, isn't it? He's banging form. Scored 11 in 12, and then the last 3 games, it's them guys. I think Brentford they did absolutely fantastically to mark him out the game. To be fair, I think even that Man United naturally would have identified our biggest threats, which would have been Moreno going down that left hand side and Ollie Watkins, who was banging form up until the last couple of games. So it's only natural, isn't it? I think it hasn't really had chances though. Like if he was missing chances, you think, okay, he's gone off the ball a little bit here, but he hasn't had those chances, so you can't really blame him too much. It's just one of them, isn't it? He can't score every week, and Villa can't win every week, so it's only natural. But yeah, it's not a worry, but it's something to look at for sure.
Because we probably, this isn't a dig at the team at all, as I say, they've been fantastic. I'm not knocking anybody at all, but probably since in that Newcastle game, probably created more chances in that game, than we have done across the 3 since it, really, haven't we? Because we were so good that day.
Yeah, not quite back to the Gerrard days where we can't create anything at all.
No. We still carry a threat, don't we?
Yeah.
Even on a bad day now, I still come away from it and think we're a good team.
You still fancy just to pop up with a goal, don't you? Like Brentford was the prime example. Like we weren't great in that game at all. Again, one of them where Watkins didn't have a sniff, but we still popped up, didn't we? We still popped up. And yesterday, it could have happened, like you said, another 5-10 minutes, we might have popped up with one. I just think the final ball was just a little bit of a lack of quality yesterday, and probably a lot of games catching up on certain players and just not being able to rotate. But yeah, unfortunate. Take it, move on. Got to get a reaction.
It'll do us good to have 6 days without a game. I think going into the Wolves game, which is a huge game, we know they'll. It's a big game for them, as it would be. They were chasing Europe. We take great pleasure in trying to stop them getting Europe, so it would be exactly the same for us going there next week. But Buendía the other one I wanted to ask about. I've seen him getting a little bit of criticism on social media, and there's a few people in the chat talking about him as well. I feel like he's getting a little bit frustrated. I feel like he's spending a lot more time throwing his arms up in the air than he has been in recent weeks. I like him because, he always works hard. You can never accuse him of not working hard. And yes, he gives the ball away, but I always think he's trying to progress the ball and try something and play things forward. So I've got no problem when a player loses the ball when they're doing that. But I have noticed over the last couple of games a bit more of him throwing his arms in the air and getting frustrated.
Yeah, a bit of probably a catalyst to people moaning about him on social media is probably the fact that he waves his arms around and he moans quite a lot. If he didn't do that, you probably wouldn't moan about his performances. I think it's just his sort of personality coming through and him having that sort of
a bit Bruno, if you will.
Oh, don't. That sort of stereotypical South American personality if he really hates losing and things like that. But yeah, I think he holds onto the ball a little bit too long, and I don't like moaning about players when we've just gone 10 unbeaten and won 8 of them. Like he's popped up with moments as well. That assist for Luiz in the dying minutes at Brentford, that goal at Everton, which feels like a long time ago now. And I don't know. Yeah, frustrating. He is frustrating to watch, but like you said, that's his personality and he takes those risks. So I think he's vitally important. But on the other hand, he's our record signing, and I think he's got to take it up a level possibly. And I think, Unai Emery's the man to get that out of him. Of course he is, but I think he has got another level. And for a record signing, like I said, I think he's got to get there, but he's not someone who deserves to be singled out at this point for me at all, or anything like that.
I don't think you can single anyone out at the moment. We didn't lose yesterday because anyone played particularly badly, or there wasn't anyone. I was sitting at home watching and thinking, they're having a bad game. It is just that we don't have much to freshen it up. At the moment, you mentioned Coutinho at the start. He's been out forever. Been out throughout this whole unbeaten run, hasn't he? Coutinho, just as he'd scored in a game of football for us, and even just the fact of having him to come on, I do think that would have made a huge difference, especially when we're playing well. Coutinho's never really been part of a Villa team that's been playing well. So we were playing well over the last month or two, the 2 months he's been out, him being involved in that, you might have seen a completely different player to what we'd been seeing for probably the 6-7 months previous. And Bailey would have been useful off the bench yesterday. Whatever you think of him, I think just being able to stretch the game a little bit and give us a bit more to carry a threat on the counter attack. I think that's something we've struggled with at times. I'll give Manchester United credit. Yesterday, I looked at their back four and thought, we should be able to get at them here. But actually, there wasn't a weak link across their back four. I thought Lindelof was really good. Luke Shaw looks like he's been playing left centre back his whole life. Malacia at left back, I thought he's a tough player to play against. I actually thought Wan-Bissaka would play because of Moreno, because he feels like the ideal fit to stop that kind of thing. But you're right, Dallo, he's a really good fullback and did a really good job. So as a defensive unit, I actually think they were really difficult to break down yesterday, and I think their defence all had a good game.
Yeah, they were good. The thing that confused me a little bit when Harry Maguire came on, some of the Villa away end were chanting his name as if it was a good thing that he was coming on. I was looking around, this is a bit weird. I don't know if that came through on telly or people who were there
can hear it.
Shine a light on what that was about. Because I thought that was.
He had his
weird,
night out in Midfield recently, didn't he? His night out.
Yeah, he's signing for Villa. He's signing for Villa. No,
I don't think Harry Maguire is signing for Villa.
We would not touch that man with a barge pole at all.
Let's not rule out completely, just in case.
No, it makes no sense.
I can't see it. No,
it would never happen. But no, they did well. To be fair, you got to give credit to them. They did well. They're hard to break down. But back to the injuries, yeah, that's what we're missing. Bailey and even Cash as well. Like you said, Ashley Young, fair play to him. He's doing really good. But you can sort of see it now, can't you? And Cash would be an ideal sort of injection of freshness to come in at this point, and hopefully it sounds like he might be back next week. I don't know if you can shed any light on that, but that'll be a massive boost, won't it? To get, I think Emery said after the game, one or two are close. It just seems like
Cash and Bailey will be the two closest. They'll be the two closest. Cash and
I hope so. It'll be a massive boost as well. Like that could be the difference in the final 4 games at this point. It could be the difference. Just that injection of freshness. It could be a massive difference. So let's hope they are close.
You looking forward to next weekend against Wolves?
Not really, because every time I've been, we've lost. I think my first time there was the second year in the Championship. Saturday, 5:30, lost 2-0. I think Jota scored. It was a terrible, terrible afternoon. Every time I've been there, it's been horrible. Trezeguet scoring a consolation. A couple of years ago, Ollie Watkins penalty, just losing 2-1, 2-1.
Yeah, the year we won, no one was there, were there? It was
well, exactly. Last minute. Yeah, exactly. It's never fun going there. It's like your classic away days. It's always good fun going to Wolves away on the train until the game rolls around. So let's hope we can put that record to bed, because it's not been great recently going to their place, has it?
Will be interesting because obviously, the last time we lost a game, we lost 3 in a row. So the last time we lost a game was we'd lost 3 in a row. So you don't want to lose again at the weekend and then it become a thing where you lose 2 or 3 on the spin, especially at this stage of the season when we've now ended up putting ourselves in a ridiculously good position. So it is really, really important to bounce back against Wolves. But I actually think, although Wolves will be up for it, there'll be a really good atmosphere. They got nothing to play for this season. This will be their cup final. But I think it's a good game to have, because you can't lose 6-0 and there'd be no you could take in no negative things away from that. There'll be some negatives for Wolves to take away from that game. I watched that game on Saturday and they were hopeless. Really, really hopeless. Brighton had left a lot of players out as well. I mean, they won't be as generous, I'm sure, as they were against Brighton on Saturday. But there's no way that they're coming away from that game and their confidence hasn't been dented.
Yeah, true. People talk about reactions and stuff, but I think you've got to look at it from both sides. But they have been decent at home, though. That's the thing. That's the sort of their home form has been what's propelled them away from that relegation zone. I think, were they bottom at Christmas, or they were really, really struggling like before Lopetegui came in?
They're in the bottom 3 when Lopetegui came in.
Yeah, so look, they've had a decent resurgence, but at this point, it might work in their favour. They've got nothing to play for, so between now and the end of the season, they'll probably look at Villa and think, yeah, they're fine for something. We want to stop that. Whether that's on the fan side of things or the players will sort of feel that from the crowd. I don't know. I think it'll be hard. I think it's always going to be hard. They don't want to lose to us. Of course they don't. So it's going to be difficult, but I think it's still in Villa's hands, isn't it, to an extent? Yes, you look at Brighton and think they've got games in hand, but we've got to play them. We've got to play Tottenham as well. So we can make a real impact. That's the bonus we've got over these other 2 teams. So look, again, massive game, but look forward to it. Bring it on.
Yeah, the 4 games that are left are all huge. Obviously, local derby away at Wolves, and then to have Spurs, Liverpool, and Brighton to play, who are all in the hunt for Europe like us. It is they're exciting. 4 exciting games. Sometimes seasons can peter out. Obviously, we're looking to get into Europe. I think they're good, actually good games to have to stop teams around us. Tottenham again looked just awful at times yesterday against Liverpool, just absolutely laughable at times. And even when they do well and get back into the game, 1 minute later they've chucked it away and they're losing 4-3. So I've identified the next two in particular as good chance for 6 points, and then see where we're at going into the final two, because Anfield will be tough, and then Villa Park against Brighton on the last day will be absolutely rocking. I mean, I remember it being quite a good atmosphere the last time we played Brighton on a last day of the season in the Championship, when we had absolutely zero to play for, and we spoiled their day because that stopped them winning the league. I think, didn't it? Newcastle ended up winning the league because we drew with them in what was a rubbish, awful game at Villa Park. So teams do take joy in stopping other teams from doing things late on in the season. But I'm looking at those next two games and thinking, if we can get 6 points from those two games, which is easily doable, not easily doable, it's doable for this side, I would say, we're then in a really good position heading into the final two, which I think are the two tougher games of the four we've got left.
I think you've got to beat Wolves. You've got to beat Wolves, and then you go from there. Just take one game as it comes. And I think you fancy us against anyone in the home games. You do, especially with us being able to do something in those home games, with it meaning so much. With Tottenham being quite frail at the moment, fragile team with a bouncing atmosphere. We start strong on them. You know, we score early goals at Villa Park. You do fancy us, of course you do. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, or whatever, but you do fancy us. And then on a final day, anything can happen. Like you said, if it does go down to that final day, which I'd probably take at this point, Villa Park will be a fantastic atmosphere, and you fancy us against anyone when it means so much. So it's going to be tough. That Liverpool away game is going to be tough, but they leak goals at home, 3 to a poor Tottenham side, 2 to Forest the week before. So it's not impossible. But game by game, beat Wolves, go from there.
No, none of us expected to even be chasing Europe at this point. Exactly. But when you are, you obviously start dreaming of it and you want it to happen. It's a bit like Arsenal now. They've been top for 80% of the season, and they're not going to win the league. And although they've made staggering progress, there will be a tinge of disappointment, because when you've been in that position for so long. So when we've been in the European places towards the end of the season, you want to stay there. Just because we've lost at the weekend, has your confidence been dented of us getting Europe? Because the way I see it is, yes, we've lost to Manchester United, but the teams we're up against, they're not all going to win every game until the end of the season, and we weren't going to just continue staying unbeaten for the rest of the season.
A little bit, but I think that's only natural. Like, it's going to happen, but I don't know. I just think it's so tight, but I do seek comfort in the fact that I feel like it's in our hands, though. Like, I can feel it's in our hands, because we've got to play those two sides, and Brighton have got the top 4 to play, as well as a couple of games against sides who are banging trouble, so they'll be up for it as well. So Tottenham have got to play Brentford, go to Leeds, well, they'll be fighting for something as well. Got to play a Palace side who are banging form as well. So you don't know. I think, yes, it's been knocked a little bit because we have lost and other teams have picked up points, whatever. But I don't know. You're still confident, are you? Because I feel like it's in our hands, especially with those two games that mean so much against the sides around us are at home as well. So, no, still confident. Why not? But there will be a slight tinge of disappointment if we don't make it at this point. But whatever happens, it's been a remarkable season. Remarkable season.
Even if we got Conference League instead of Europa League, you'd be happy with that. But there'd still be a little bit of disappointment. It's natural. There'd be a little bit, because we could have got Europa. If Adam just pulls up the league table for me, please. A second. I'll tell you how I see it. I just wanted the league table up to justify what I'm about to say. So yeah, we're on the same points as Tottenham. So 7th gets you European football. We're on the same points as Tottenham. And if I take everyone else out of the equation there, I think we'll get more points than Tottenham for the rest of the season. So as long as Brentford don't go on a mad one, that would be Europe. That's right, isn't it? That's the way I see it, is that if we can beat Spurs, I think we will get more points than Tottenham Hotspur get towards the end of the season, and that will get us Europe. So that's why I'm positive about it, because I'm just purely looking at them at the moment. It'd be nice to finish ahead of Brighton and Liverpool, but obviously Brighton have got those games in hand. But you're right, they've got tough fixtures, tough games to play in a short space of time as well. Which, seen us be leggy in the last few weeks. That can happen to them as well. But if I look at it purely from the point of us v Tottenham for a European place, at the moment, I would make us favourites for that.
Yeah, we've got the same amount of points, and their goal difference is just a couple better than us. So we beat them. It's so close, mate. It's so close. That's Brighton's fixtures there. It's tough, isn't it, for them? Even them. You mentioned Tottenham, but it's going to be hard for Brighton. I know they rested McAllister, Mitoma at the weekend and won 6-0. So you never know. I just think we'll know a lot more after this couple of games now, and then we'll go to Anfield and go from there. But bring it on, I say. Bring it on. Why not? Why not? Bring it on.
Yeah, Brighton. There's a lot of hard games in there. They've got to go to the Emirates and St James's Park.
Yeah, and
Amongst
welcome Man
amongst
City
that
as well.
Premier
Like
game.
it's Man United on Thursday. They've got so not easy, not easy.
No, it's like you say, it still feels very much in Villa's hands, and that is a real positive thing. The big we've had some big results recently. Even just coming back and getting a point against Brentford, that was a really big point because we didn't play well, and just getting an extra point kept the distance us from them the same as well. So we have done it. One defeat doesn't change my confidence in this team, and it doesn't change how good they've been over the last couple of months to have put themselves in the position. So as I say, and I've said it about 17 times now, I'm just looking at it as us v Tottenham for a European place. I make us favourites for that at the moment. I think if you spoke to Spurs fans, they'd probably be exactly the same. They'd say, you're a better team than us at the moment. You're carrying a bit more momentum than we are at the moment. I think some Spurs fans as well probably wouldn't want Europe, whereas it means the world to us to get into Europe, doesn't it? Because Wolves and Blues have been in Europe more recently than we have. Wigan have been in Europe more recently than
We
we
talk
have.
about being a big club. Big clubs act like big clubs, and we need to get back in there, mate. I've never seen it. I want to go to these obscure countries. I want to tick it off the bucket list, mate. Like it's dreamland stuff. I couldn't care, to be honest, what competition it's in. I just want to be there and be on TV on a Thursday night and be God knows where on a Thursday night as well. Like just bring it on because we've seen even this season, like we've seen some dire football and dire scenes at the club and whatever. It's just been such a mad turnaround. And if we can top that off with any form of European football, it will be incredible. And I think because Arsenal aren't going to win the league now, I think Emery's got to be up there for manager of the season. I think it's going to be, for me, it'll be between him and Howe.
I think Howe will get it.
Yeah, I'd probably just give it to Hal. But I think even him being in the conversation is it's brilliant. It's brilliant. But let's top it off with some European football. That'd be nice.
I mean, a bit of nostalgia here. I mean, when I was a kid, when I was young, so I would have been 10 or 11, maybe. Oh, actually, I'm probably younger than that. Maybe 8 or 9. My first ever European game, Villa beat Inter Milan on penalties. And it was like I'd never experienced anything like it. It was just felt really different to watching Premier League football. Even at that age, Inter Milan had some really good players at that point as well. That's when the UEFA Cup was just 2 legs all the way through, and it was knockout football. And then I think of the Atletico Madrid game a few years later when Stan Collymore hits one in off the bar and Villa are so close and got knocked out on the away goals rule. In the end, to Atletico Madrid in the quarterfinals of the UEFA Cup. When I was young, Villa were always in Europe. And then we kind of were in it in the Martin O'Neill days, but didn't really take it seriously. Kind of took it for not the fans, but as a club, it was very much taken for granted. Like it was always going to be there, and we'll focus on the league because we're going to finish 4th, and then we didn't finish 4th, and then we've just never been in Europe since. Even though as a kid, there was Intertoto Cup games to look forward to in pre-season. They don't even do that anymore.
There's some big clubs in these competitions, though. The Conference League, Europa League, there's some big clubs in there. Roma, even in the Conference League, Europa League, might even see the Milan clubs in there. So it's just going toe to toe to these teams, and I've never experienced it. People talk about under the lights at Villa Park, and it's like, well, yeah, but it's Fulham on a Tuesday. Do you know what I mean? Like we need these European
when we
nights.
Played Ajax. How old would you have been then? That was like 2008.
No, my first game was under McLeish, like 2011. So exactly. So I've never seen it, mate. I've never seen it. So I'm just so desperate for it. Home, away, it'll be a complete new experience. So desperate to get there. Bring it on.
I suppose I watched your video on Claret and Blue yesterday. Saying one of your favourite ever away games.
Sheffield Wednesday.
No, friendly at Leipzig.
Exactly.
So that was a friendly, and I imagine how good that was, like being in Leipzig for a friendly in Germany at that point. I can imagine it being actually a game that that
like a
meant
knockout
something
game
now
or
to do with
something.
rugby.
Like, can you imagine? It will be incredible. And like we take thousands to these pre-season games. Rennes last season, like we packed out the away end for a meaningless friendly a week before the season. Can you imagine if like it means something? We get into the knockout stages, whatever. It will be huge, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. It might not happen.
No.
We'll see.
But if you get another thing, if we do get there and we do manage to qualify for Europe, you've got the perfect manager for it as well.
Yeah.
That's the thing that makes it even more unbelievable. If we actually manage to get there, we've got a manager that has won these cups for fun.
Yeah, for like a one-off
years.
game against anyone.
He knows how to do it, doesn't he? He knows
Francis?
what he's doing.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm getting excited. Just thinking about it. We've got to do it. Hopefully, my analogy about Spurs is absolutely correct, and that means that we will get European football. Someone in the comments saying Villa v Bordeaux was my first European. No, I remember I was at that game.
I'd love to go to Bordeaux. Imagine that as an away day.
I think it was we won 1-0 at Villa Park. Savo scored an extra time. There's even these things like having extra time and penalties and things like that. It was brilliant. Oh, the small Sean says I don't know which competition he's talking about. The finals in Dublin as well next year. I don't know whether that's Europa League or Europa Conference League, but the final being in Dublin, that's absolute. That would be absolute carnage because you'd get thousands of Villa fans that didn't even have tickets.
Tens of thousands. Everyone
would be in Dublin, wouldn't they? Because it would be silly not to go.
Constant flights from Birmingham full of Villa fans. Like, can you imagine?
Absolutely ridiculous. Right, I'm going to stop us getting excited. We'll talk about maybe we'll do this in the summer. Have this conversation again, but do it when we know it's concrete and that it's definitely happening. Thanks to everyone who's joined us late on this Monday night to have a chat, and thanks to Max for joining me as well. Max, do you want to plug your little YouTube channel for those that have
my little YouTube channel? How patronising, Dan! Come on, shout out Villa on Tour. Did a video at the weekend at Old Trafford. Go and check that out. Go and check out the Villa on Tour podcast as well. I'll give that a little plug as well. Myself and Simon do one that comes out every Monday morning. There'll be one coming out tomorrow morning as well. So Apple, Spotify, Villa on Tour podcast. Go and check that out as well. Thank you very much for having me on, Dan. Appreciate it, mate.
Love talking to you about football and talking to you about Villa, obviously, as well. Max, thanks to Adam for producing. Don't forget, if you do want some Purity Ale, to use our code #VillaView. And because Max is on, I'll say if you want to get anything from Luke Roper, use the code TVV20 and you'll get 20% off at the checkout. Right, we'll be back with an 1874 with Greg in the week. I need to speak to him actually to make sure that we saw that, because we didn't do one last week because we couldn't get our schedules aligned, but we will get one out at some point this week. 260 of you watching live at the moment. Appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you very much, and thanks to those that will go on and watch the video as well. I mean, you're going to bed now, but have a good rest of the evening and up the Villa.